Hello, my name's Nicole Christensen. So, we're here to talk about long-term care. What is it? What are our options? What does it cover? Who needs it? When do I need it? And we're going to answer all of those questions for you. I'm coming from Care Answered, which is a patient advocacy and care coordination organization providing people with their best care and giving loved ones peace of mind while empowering all patients. I am also the proud founder of Answers for Care, that's the number four care, which is a village of aging care solutions. We have everything you need to go through life and have a quality of life that you deserve. So check us out on answersforcare.com. And we have one of our Answers for Care pros here today, and we're very excited to hear from Rona Loshak to tell us about long-term planning. And when we think of that, it can mean a myriad of things. But what we want to have in place, one of the things we want to have in place is the money to get the care that we need and have the quality of life we deserve. So I am not going to take up any more time because I learn every time she speaks as well. So I'm excited to have her here. So, Rona, please welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Nicole, for having me. And thank you, everyone, for taking some time this afternoon to learn more about long-term care planning. I'm going to share my screen and go through a lot of information. So if there's follow-up questions or anything, put in the chat. My contact information will be out there later for you to give me a call specifically. Okay. Um, Basically, this is what's happening. We're living longer lives. So we have to think about what does that mean because we're living longer lives. All of you are in different fields, or you're looking at this personally, and we need to know, how do we address this? We can't stick our head in the sand anymore. Just to give you an overview of why my partner Natalie Karp and I are uniquely qualified for this, we are truly independent brokers that work with every single carrier and every single plan design in all 50 states. There's nothing we don't work with, nobody we don't work with. We work for you and or your clients. We are the company that Northwell Health chose to partner with because we can create a plan from the board of trustees, the head, the president, to someone working in the lab or wherever. There's always a plan that could fit somebody's needs because we're all living longer not lives, and we all need to do this to protect ourselves and our family. We give CE credits to CPAs in New York State, financial planners. We're endorsed by AARP. We speak nationally in many, many states to CPA groups. We've been written up in the Wall Street Journal 6 times. We're a Goldman Sachs 10,000 small business, and lots of other good organizations and things, including the care for, Answers for Care group. So I'm looking forward to going through a lot of information today. Really, what is going on and why long-term care matters so much more now than it ever has, and why it's very timely, much more timely now. I'm going to be going through what's happening now in state payroll legislation for long-term care planning and why, in fact, the states have to be doing something about it. Although it's not a great plan, it shows that there's a need, and that's because there's limited federal government programs. They're all being cut back. We're living longer lives, as we said. There's changing family dynamics, and the cost of self-funding for care are astronomical, as most of you know. Then I'll go into the specifics of the new long-term care planning options that are out there. First, I'm not going to get into this in so much detail because I could spend hours on what's going on with this new state payroll tax. But basically, Washington State in 2022 created a tax of 0.58% on people's wages to fund a state program that would help pay a small amount of benefit. If you look here, just $36,000 a year to help people with their long-term care benefit, long-term care needs. It's not a portable program. to any other state. You need to have 3 out of 6 activities of daily living. And the only way to opt out of paying this tax was to purchase a long-term care insurance policy. So, needless to say, we were chosen as one of the people to be on this. Our phones were going off the hook because 0.58%, if you're a working person, adds up really quickly with taxes for a very small plan, this 36,000. It was really meant to be, that 36,000 is really meant to be as a stopgate for people who don't necessarily qualify for Medicaid, but don't have the resources or health that could qualify for long-term care insurance. So the states had a little more money to maybe pay a family member to help. So, what happened now? People are seeing that 40% of states now are looking at this. New York is really close to having this program. It's a little hard to introduce a tax in an election year. It's written, it's been going on since 2022, and probably whoever is in office in New York State is going to put it in, but I doubt this year with an election coming up that it'll be put through this year. We expect next year because New York was next to California in being the closest to institute it. What we're telling our clients and advisors to do when this law goes into effect in New York State and in any of the states that it's currently proposed in, the carriers are going to do what they did in Washington State. They got really, really strict. They said, we can't handle millions of applications coming in. They don't want that risk. They don't want people buying small policies just to not pay the tax. So this is the timeline of how they pulled out of Washington State. So this is going to happen in New York. What we think is going to happen in New York is they're going to say everybody who has a policy as of I'm giving an example, January 2025. It might be, if it comes in 2 years, it'll probably be the year before or 6 months before. Then so you have to have a policy in place. So what we're telling our clients and advisors to do is to get your clients a policy before this legislation gets enacted. Okay? Because after that, there will probably not be an opt-out. So again, the time to differentiate yourself is now. Let people know now is the time to get educated. All right? It's going to be a 0.5 to a 1% payroll tax. Again, get ahead of the curve, and it has to be a 7702B policy. I'm going to get into what that means and why it's so important to make sure if you or any of your clients think they have a long-term care policy or long-term care benefit, that they make sure it's a 7702B, because those are the only federally guaranteed standardized policies. I'm going to get into what a 7702B means, but the main thing is, why are these states doing this? What's going on that's making this so timely? Basically, we're all getting older. We're all living a longer life. Once you reach age 80, there's an 80% chance that you'll need long-term care in your life. So if somebody says, no, I'm not going to need long-term care, I'm healthy, well, great, you are healthy. You are more likely to live a long life and more likely to need long-term care, because as you age, you're more likely to be living alone, develop a chronic condition, be on a reduced income, and more likely to get the chronic conditions of aging, such as cognitive diseases. Women are more at risk because they live 5 years longer than men. Always trying to protect our women. Also, if you're in the metro area, you have access to good medical care. Access to good medical care gives you even more reason that you're going to live a longer life. Okay? We have this good care, we have the money. This is not even a lot of money. This is the basic money that it needs to live in the metro area. We have access, we have health insurance. We are more likely to live, 1 out of 2 spouses more likely to live to age 95. So we tell people all the time, don't just plan to retirement, plan through retirement, 30 years plus after retirement. And it's so important to let everybody know that. If you look how health has changed just since 2000, which to me seems like yesterday, but I know it was 25 years ago plus, breast cancer used to be a death sentence, heart attacks. My dad had a heart attack. They didn't say what number heart attack were you on back in the 80s. Now it's like what number heart attack? It's your third heart attack, okay? These are not death sentences. So the risk of dying young has reduced where the conditions of aging like Alzheimer's and those consequences have increased just in the past 20, 25 years. There was a huge article in June 2021. Americans' biggest financial risk for baby boomers is cognitive decline. It's real, and you've probably heard a million stories about it, and we really have to address it, and people want to stick their head in the sand, but it's a reality. So really, we always talk about that, no matter what you say, I'm going to jump off a mountain, I'm not going to live that long, poison me, all that stuff, it's not going to happen. It's a family issue, and your family is not going to let you. So if you don't plan for your long-term care, even if there's a lot of money there, there's always going to be an issue. Adult children have different decisions on how they want to spend their money. I have a CEO who has assets of $60 million. He said, one person's going to want a bigger share of the pot. Another person's still going to want to put me on Medicaid. Another kid is going to want to put me in the penthouse of the, fancy place in the city. He said, by having my own stream of money coming in to have the care that I want, I am more in control of my care decisions. Okay. Caregiving is mostly not equitable. We work with high net worth people now who was saying it used to be 100 years ago, not 100 years ago, 15 years ago. Get a big life insurance policy, use the money, and then when you die, then the kids will get the life insurance policy. Use your own assets. Well, now what they're saying is nobody wants to use the assets. Even people that have money, they're scared to use up their assets. They're scared to spend any money on care. So it's important that they know that this faucet of tax stream money is helping cash flow so they don't have to burden their spouse or loved ones. If you know anybody in a second marriage, they're very vulnerable to long-term care issues because the kids are in charge, the new wife's in charge, the second wife's in charge, the old wife doesn't want to know from them. Like, it's a big issue. So make sure if you have any clients that are in a second marriage or blended families, everybody needs to have long-term care protection. And basically, everybody's going to be solo aging at some point. Okay, you could be married now, isn't that nice? My wife, my husband, all that. One of you is going to be solo aging. You have to plan for that. Women are more vulnerable to that because of their longer life expectancy. And again, because we're living longer, you might have said, well, my child will help me. But if you're living to 98 and your child is 68, you know what? They're not lifting you in and out of the shower either. So everything is getting shifted. It's the family cannot be depended on, especially because most of them don't live nearby or they're working. How does one trigger a long-term care policy? This is really important. These these standard definitions is 7702B. Okay, this definition is you need to have help with 2 out of 6 activities of daily living or supervision for cognitive impairment for a condition that lasts at least 90 days. Okay, the 6 activities of daily living are bathing, dressing, transferring, toileting, continence, and eating. So 2 out of those 6, or supervision for cognitive impairment for at least 90 days. That is what 7702B says. It's written into 1996 HIPAA legislation, and that language is written into every 7702B contract. Almost every single standalone contract written after 1996 has this language. Most of the hybrid policies, I shouldn't say most, 50% of the hybrid policies have this language, and only 25% of life insurance with a rider have this language. So it's very important when somebody has life insurance and says, oh, I have a rider, that rider, if they didn't pay money for it, and it's like, I have this rider that protects me, in many cases, it's a 101G. It is not guaranteed. Okay, many times you don't know what the benefit is at the time of claim. It's discounted at the time of claim, so they might say you're getting 2% of the death benefit. However, some of them, I don't want to mention names of carriers, but it's discounted at the time. So they'll say, how old are you? What the cost of insurance? What interest rates are? By the time you're getting 2% death benefit, you're getting $300 a month. So very important, if a client says they have that, look at the contract language. Also important to look at when a long-term care policy was written. Prior to 1996, many of them did not cover cognitive conditions. Many of them did not required, I'm sorry, many of them required a hospital stay. You don't need a hospital stay now. Okay. Many of them, and very rare, very few written now that way, said home care or nursing home care. So people get frustrated when they claim for home care and their parents bought a nursing home care policy. Again, those are all older policies to be aware of for older clients. All of those things are gone now. Everything is standardized. You don't have to worry. It's all standardized language. They cannot decline you if you need to at a 6 activities of daily living or supervision for cognitive impairment for at least 90 days. That's it. So why do people also want a long-term care plan? Because people want choice of care. Think of long-term care as basically a tax-free stream of private cash or reimbursement to pay for care in any setting. You don't want anybody telling you where you want your care. If you want to go to the finest assisted living, if you want round the clock home care, that doesn't mean it's going to pay for it all. It's what you're getting, but at least you have that option. You don't want a child telling you, you don't want the government telling you where to go for your care. Most people do want to stay at home. Only 18% of care is given in nursing homes. And when somebody says long-term care insurance is nursing home care, that like makes my skin crawl because you're buying long-term care insurance because you don't want to be in a nursing home. Okay. I mean, will it pay for nursing home care? Yes. But you're buying it because you want choice of care, not because that's where you have to go. Just know that all policies are good anywhere in the US, no matter what state you buy it in, no matter what plan you buy. And there are many newer ones that are good internationally. Let's talk about the cost of care. Most of you are familiar with the cost of care. It is quite high now and only going to be getting higher. The average cost now from an agency is about $40 an hour, $38 to $40 an hour in the metro area. For 24-hour care, that's $960 a day after taxes. I don't care how much money you have, that is a tremendous amount of money to be spending considering that most people don't know how long they'll need long-term care. So paying for care means reallocating resources, income, selling assets. What are we going to sell? What are we going to do? Let's just say even with a conservative cost of care, that's an 8-hour day for 3 years, or maybe an assisted living for 3 years. Right now, that would be about $120,000 a year. Conservatively, care is needed for 3 years. That cost is $360,000. In 15 years, that'll be $720,000 after taxes per person. And in 30 years, the cost of care is going to be $1.4 million a person, or almost $3 million a couple. Okay. These numbers seem outrageous, and I always said they seem outrageous, but I always look at things. I went to college for $2,500 a year. I thought it was a lot. I had to pay back my loan. And you know what? Now, what is it? 80,000 a year? When they said it was going to be 80,000 a year, that number seemed like going to the moon, something crazy. And there it is. We're here now. So you really have to take these numbers seriously and help your clients and help those really start to plan for this. Medicare. Just to clarify, Medicare supplements and health insurance does not pay for extended care. I think they did a study that 50%, 57% of baby boomers didn't know that. So basically, Medicare is skilled care. It's your nursing care. It's to help you with an acute condition to get better. They will pay for up to 100 days of skilled nursing care with an average approval of 20 to 25 days. If you don't need skilled care, it's bye-bye from the rehab, you're on your own. Okay? And maybe they'll send somebody to your house for 4 hours a week or 8 hours a week for something. If you think about this, compare the fact that long-term care is needed on average for 3.3 years or 3.9 years or longer, that's not helping you with your long-term care. Medicaid. Don't want to get into the whole Medicaid discussion. What I do want to talk about, I'm glad that it's there for people who have nothing. But people always forget that there are two triggers for Medicaid. So your attorneys are going to make you poor, however you get poor. Okay, you have no money, you're poor. One trigger, the financial trigger. The second trigger is the medical trigger. And this is so important. People always forget this. The medical trigger is constantly changing. Now it's 3 out of 6 activities of daily living. It's also managed Medicaid. Okay, so what that means is Nassau County has a pool of money, let's say, and if somebody needs 6 out of 6 activities of daily living, have no family nearby, no assets, they're going to get the 24-hour care that they may need. If you need help dressing and showering, they're not sending somebody to your house to live in to help you get up. They're not doing 24-hour care, even 8-hour care. Maybe they'll come to your house 4 hours a day, possibly, if you get approved. 8 hours, maybe twice, maybe you'll get a few days a week. Okay. So it's really, really important to understand that Medicaid, for anybody who can afford and health qualify for long-term care insurance, it's really, really important to get long-term care insurance. Why? Because the two are not mutually exclusive. So, for instance, when you just need a little bit of care and want your choice of care, your policy will trigger, which is 2 out of 6 activities of daily living. As those years go on, you might need more care. And then you could always do Medicaid planning and then trigger a Medicaid benefit if is Medicaid at that point round. But the point is, long-term care insurance will get you out of any crisis mode, a fall, a this, a that, where Medicaid is not going to kick in and cover any of that right away for you. Again, the state benefits aren't there. This is really small, really, again, for the person who can't health qualify or has no money for long-term care, not portable to other states. So your options are to either fund your own long-term care or to shift the risk to a long-term care insurance company. Lots of different plans out there. There's standalone plans. Those are the plans you're familiar with. You pay until you claim. Um, there's no more state partnership plans in New York State. There are in other states. That's where there's kind of a Medicaid back end. The biggest, maybe 65% of plans now are the asset-based hybrid plans. What is an asset-based hybrid plan? That's basically a long-term care policy built on the chassis of a life insurance policy. But we're not solving for a big death benefit. We're solving for a big long-term care benefit. So you're getting your big long-term care benefit. You pay in a limited pay, 5 years, 10 years. And if you don't need long-term care or just need a little, you get back your premiums that you paid in. So that's the death benefit. Okay. Different than life insurance with a long-term care or chronic illness rider, you're buying a death benefit. And if you need long-term care, you draw down that death benefit. These are about double the price of the asset-based hybrid plans because the insurance company is giving you a death benefit and a big long-term care benefit the same. Okay, they're great for people who need a death benefit. So young people who are buying a life insurance policy, I always tell them to get a life insurance with an LTC rider on it because they need the death benefit. But if they don't, die young in that period, let them at least draw it down and get it for their long-term care benefit later on. Annuities and are great. They're not sold in New York State, but they have ones that are great for people with compromised health. They're outside New York State, and we do a lot of these for people who are older with compromised health. Those have a long-term care benefit. If you know anybody that owns a business, employer groups outside New York are really big because they know that these taxes are coming for the states and they want to help their groups. So you could get, for instance, there are great companies in New York that we have worked with a bunch of groups to create, just need 20, 25 people, and then they get a modest, nice hybrid policy for a group of people in their company. And they won't have to pay the tax and they'll be covered and it's simplified underwriting. So again, we always talk, I know I'm giving you so much information, but I just want to kind of explain again the benefit of shifting the risk. This is someone with a standalone policy, real premiums, $3,500 a year, We get it. No one wants to write a check to the insurance company. I don't want to write a check to the insurance company. Nobody does. But this is somebody that said, you know what? I'm going to pay that 3,500 or 332 a month. I'm putting that into an investment. And let's see what happens. So they put that 332. This is a safe investment. They put it in at 3.5% compound interest guaranteed. You have to put in something safe, even if it's 4%. They put away over 20 years, $73,000, 980. That 73,980 grew over 20 years to 132,000. Let's say it grew to 150, 160,000. We know that's not anywhere near going to help us with our long-term care costs. And if we need it, we're going to have to pay taxes on it, right? If we had to pull that out of an investment. Where if we had bought a long-term care insurance policy right away from day one, we would have $370,000 tax-free for our long-term care. How do we get this? If you look at the bottom left, we bought, this is a real policy, male 55. He bought a policy 51 that gave him initially $5,100 a month benefit. Okay, he bought a 6-year benefit period. So if you take $5,100 a month times 12 months in a year times 6 years, he's entitled, if he claims tomorrow, right after he bought the policy, he's entitled to $370,000 tax-free. All long-term care benefits are tax-free, whether it's cash or reimbursement. So that's what he's entitled to. And because most of the policies have inflation protection built into the premium, this one has 3% compound inflation. From day one, this is growing. When he needs that policy in 20 years, he would have 668, 261 tax-free for his long-term care. 5 times leverage than he would have had if instead of just putting it in an investment. So there's no better leverage to cover your likely long-term care costs. This is how the hybrid plans work. Again, the leverage is there. If you look at someone that has 100,000, or let's say 10 years of 10,000, it's sitting in their portfolio, 100,000. I'm going to grow this with my wonderful financial advisor. We love financial advisors, but this is the financial advisor, the top row. Okay. In 20 years, if they had put this into a treasury or something guaranteed at 4.5% compound growth, that would have grown to $241,000. If they need that $241,000, they'll have to pay taxes on that for long-term care. And we know that's not going to be enough money for care. If they had taken that 100,000, okay, and moved it from their investment to a hybrid policy, right away from day one, they would have $583,000. This is a plan. This is a nationwide plan, 55-year-old male, $583,000 tax-free cash for their long-term care, or $87.80 a month. This is the difference in the hybrid policies. If they don't need it, or they just need a little of it, their death benefit is $134,000, about what they put in. Or if they change their mind, they can get back 95% of their benefit. Their premium, $95,000 at any point after they put that $100,000 in. This is just a female. Want to talk about quickly the benefit that it's the idea that it's tax-free. Okay. If you needed the cost of care now to be 100,000, let's just say. If you need to pull out money from an investment or an asset, if someone's in a 35% tax rate, they would have to pull out $154,000 to get to that 100,000. With long-term care insurance, 100,000 is 100,000. So even if you can't buy the full benefit of covering all your costs, at least you're getting a stream of money that's tax-free to cover some of your care costs and taking less out of your retirement portfolio when you need care every month. Okay, so that's what a lot of people do. Most people can't, insure the whole thing. I mean, I have a few people that come in, and do that. Most of the time, they're just trying to cover half to 2/3 of their care costs so they're not depleting their retirement assets. This is an example, again, of the hybrid plans, just showing if someone had earmarked, this is Bright House, 100,000 for their long-term care and said, this is my 100,000. This is with an advisor. This is even bigger growth. If they had grown at 6%, this would have grown to 320,000. If they had put this into a long-term care hybrid policy, okay, in 20 years, they would have 984,000. That's how big the growth is with this plan, or $172,000 death benefit. That is, it's huge. Okay, so what you're gaining is this tax-free cash benefit versus this self-funding that's not getting you anywhere near the numbers that you're going to need for care. This is a very financial number, but some of you may be interested. You would have to be guaranteed 14.4% annually every year. That's the tax equivalent yield to get to these long-term care tax-free numbers. So nobody's guaranteeing that for you every year. So you could see these are the numbers, and it's tremendous, tremendous leverage. Okay, so who should be having these discussions? Women are the most vulnerable. They're either going to be solo agers, or they're going to be the ones taking care of their spouses if they don't get their spouses on board. Those with a private want access to a private pool of money. The person, this is a different type of person. There's the person who's saying, I want to be in the same assisted living that all my friends from the country club are living in. Okay. And that place might be 15,000 a month. Well, maybe they can afford 10,000. You need this extra money to be there. You want to live your same lifestyle. Then we have people who have saved, put their kids through college, through medical school, through dental school, through law school. They've scrimped and saved and done all that for their kids. They don't want to burden their children. They might not have a lot of money, but they didn't do all this so their kids could be caregivers to them. They want to protect themselves so their kids can live their own life. We spoke about blended families, huge issues. We always tell people if you are getting divorced, get your plan before you get your divorce so you get the marital discount. Reasonably healthy. You have to be reasonably healthy to get this. You can't, I must get a call a day from somebody, who got a memory test, who just got diagnosed with, MS, so you really do have to do this when you're healthy. We say this all the time, that it's your health that buys these policies, not money. Anybody with a family history should be doing this ASAP. Somebody come in and they're saying, my dad has Parkinson's, my mom has dementia. Guys, you are seeing this in real time, and it's hard to say to them, but there is a genetic component to this. You have to get this now. And then, of course, those with uninsurable spouses, their spouses will be using up retirement assets. So it's really, really important that they protect themselves. I'm not going to go through all this. What's at stake? There's a tremendous amount at stake. Just know that it's a health underwritten product. So you can get long-term care insurance with conditions that are stable and resolved. You've had cancer, stage 1, 0, great, not metastasized. Heart disease resolved, heart attacks resolved, joint replacements, osteopenia. Once you have these other conditions, diabetes with insulin, MS, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, strokes, multiple, it's much harder. And obviously all these come with age. So the younger you get this, the better your options are. We look at everything. We don't look at one thing. Marital status, budget, state residence. If somebody has a home outside of New York State, there's so many more options for them. Unfortunately, New York State is limited, and long-term care insurance doesn't care as long as you own the residence, but you don't have to be a resident. So if you just have a place in Florida, even if you're not a Florida resident, you could get a Florida plan. And in many cases, they are better. Some of the New York plans are better, but New York just has less, especially if people have compromised health. We have to look at the tax incentives. The standalone plans can be written off. There's a lot of tax incentives, as I'll get into. So you might say, I want a hybrid plan, but if you could write the whole thing off from your business, maybe that's the way to go. Again, so we have our standalone long-term care insurance, and there are more companies entering the market. Okay, NGL is new. New York Life has a hybrid plan. These plans are still there. More and more hybrid plans are out there. Annuity-based LTC insurance, again, these are great for people with compromised health, not available in New York. Short-term care is good for people on a budget. Life insurance with long-term care or a chronic illness rider, ideally we want a 207702B. But if somebody does have health issues, we would get a chronic illness rider. Tell anybody you know that has a small group, look at these group LTC plans. They're wonderful, easy, especially if the owner of the company has a health condition. Those are the people that usually are into getting these. Um, and just know that you guys have been in the business for a long time. There are so many regulations in place that have been put in place since the older policies about rate increases, about rate stabilization, about, commitment, the state insurance guarantee funds. So it's not the Wild West that it was back in the 80s when these were initially written. Okay. Again, we can't say which one is best. It's which one fits your health and your budget. Okay. Standalone plans, pay to your claim. Sometimes it's great if somebody has married, they have a shared care plan and there's a third pool of money. Those work really great and they have a business they could deduct it from. Asset-based, again, are the most popular, but sometimes because you have to pay, upfront, either the 100,000 or 10 times, 10,000, it might be hard for some people to come up with that money, but they do offer a great leverage and the great option. People like that, they don't want that use it or lose it type of thing. Life insurance with a rider. This is where you're buying a death benefit, let's say of $500,000. And if you need long-term care, you draw down 2% of it and get $10,000 a month. Great for younger people. Again, these are annuities, employee group plans. These are the tax deductions that are available for people if they own a business or they have an HSA. They can deduct their premiums from this. Only in New York State, if it's a standalone policy. Outside New York State, they can deduct it if their hybrid policy has a separate and identifiable long-term care portion. So for instance, the Nationwide Care Matter hybrid in New York doesn't, the one in Florida does. So I have people in Florida deducting a portion of their premium for their hybrid plans. Um, some people like to buy these SPEARs. SPEAR is a single premium immediate annuity. Let's say you're paying a lifetime of long-term care policies, premiums. Some people take a lump sum of money to fund it, and it could fund it for the rest of your life. So we have a lot of people doing that. I'd say the most common thing that people are doing now are 1035 exchanges. 1035 exchanges are somebody's older. They bought a whole life policy when they were in their 20s or 30s. They have cash value, maybe it built up to 100,000, 80,000, whatever. They're taking the cash value of their whole life because they don't need the death benefit so much anymore as they're more concerned about long-term care. And they take that cash value, that 80,000 out, so they surrender that policy, but they take that 80 to 100,000 out and buy a hybrid life insurance long-term care policy. So they're solving for a big long-term care benefit. The death benefit is smaller, but that's not what their concern is at their point. Their kids are set and fine. They're more concerned about protecting themselves for long-term care. This is how we analyze a plan. There's a lot that goes into it. Okay, really looking at somebody's different ways that they're living, what they need, what their family history is, and making sure that you're at least getting educated onto your options, what options are available. We do have some options for people who cannot health qualify, life settlements. There are home care only plans. They're really for people in their 80s who come to us too young. There's a company called True Freedom that could do that. Annuities are good because interest rates are still fairly high now, and you could do either with qualified money. If they're concerned about living a long life and needing cash flow, we could help with that. We always say, just start the conversation. We pre-qualify you for health, educate you on your options. We modify the plans, and then, obviously deliver the contract and come back to you every year. We know that care is expensive. We know that longevity is increasing, government programs are shrinking, and self-funding is costly. So really, we say it's really now is the time to be taking care of this. So We're just happy to be a resource for all of you.
Thank you so much, Rona. Um,
Went through a lot.
you did, and
Sorry
I
if
was able
I
to
was going too
follow.
fast.
No, no, I think most of us are New Yorkers, so we're
Yeah.
kind of used to that. So does anybody have any questions? You can take yourself off mute and ask now.
No questions.
No questions. That
No
means you did very
questions. Okay.
well.
I hope that I answered anything new or anything for all of you. And I know I went a little fast. I know that you guys are not, all newbies. So, just wanted to kind of lay it out there and let you know some of the new things that were going on.
Yes, Jeannie, I am recording it, so you will have access to it. We'll send it to you. Though one of the things that you brought up, I think is really important. It comes up in my world all the time. So as a patient advocate, I do not sell anything to do with long-term care insurance. But
Right.
what I do is I help folks get the benefit they paid into. And
Right.
so Rona and I were talking about how the policies that I see are so different from the ones that are now, right? And so getting that benefit is so, so important. And it's a little bit trickier than hopefully we'll all see. But it is very interesting how it plays out. And that 7702B, I think that's going to be my biggest homework for myself, my friends, my clients, to see what to make sure it falls into that category because that
Mhm.
is absolutely helpful. There was another thing that you said about it makes you cringe when people say for nursing home. And that is true. And we hear the same thing about in all different kinds of ways. I do want to go into a nursing home. What if I need to go into a nursing home? Those kinds of things. But there is a population that at this present time, in this present format, may need a nursing home. And to
Mhm.
have that long-term care plan to pay out of pocket for the nursing home that you may want. And all of them, I'll say this a million times, a Medicaid nursing home is a nursing home. They're all nursing homes, right? It's not one or the other. But to be thoughtful and think about where you'd want to go and have that money to pay out privately is really quite helpful. And I've talked about this before when when I'm speaking about advocating and care coordinating for people trying to discern if a nursing home placement or what their situation is, what's going to be best for their quality of life. So in all instances, it's so helpful. And Rona and I were also discussing how as humans, sometimes we don't like to think about the future. But I say, get excited about the future. We get excited about vacations. We get excited about, what we want to do when we grow up, which is constantly changing for some of us. Um, so get excited about the life you want to live rather than, oh, I'm going to be sick. Oh, I'm going to need care. It's more about the life you want to live, right? How do I want to live? Do I want to have that independence? We are human beings. We all rely on each other, no matter what we try to tell ourselves. So knowing that, hey, I'm going to have more independence because I have this in place is freeing. So, it's different for everybody, and I know Carp Loshak really looks at the whole person, just like we do at Care Answered and all of the A4C pros, looking at the whole person, the whole situation, so that you can get your best care. So this was very, very informative. I think also the understanding what's coming to New York and what we can do ahead of time. When we plan ahead, we have more options. So it was really great. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here. And we'll be here Care Answered will be here next month with some great information about waiver programs because nobody knows, clearly understands wholly what they are. And again, it's all about planning and having the right things in place.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you, Nicole. It was wonderful. It's always wonderful to, speak about this and get, people educated. And we're always here. So, and I know that you
Thank
are
you.
too.
Absolutely. And your information is there. So please call and get the specifics for you.
All right.
Take care,
Thanks.
everybody. Stay warm.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.